Good afternoon, all. Our apologies for the slight delay. The setup took a little longer than expected today, but good to see you. It has been a while. This is episode 3 of Aerospace Chronicles with myself, Katrina Douglas.
And Bunmi Durowoju. And it has been a minute.
It has been a minute, but we are here now. We are here now. So welcome to the Aerospace Chronicles. If you have never seen an episode before, this is where we share our insights, our thoughts on latest aerospace and space news, and you just get to connect with us essentially. And so welcome to today's live, whether you're joining us live or you are joining or watching the replay. So a little bit about the launch strategist, for those of you who don't know who we are. So we help aerospace companies grow and scale essentially. And what we do is we help them increase their commercial capability so that they're more profitable, more protected against market forces, and just can just grow successfully essentially. We love what we do, we love the industry, and this is just our opportunity to kind of touch base with you. So welcome to Aerospace Chronicles. We like to keep this nice and interactive, so whether you are joining live or whether you are watching via the replay, do post your comments, do ask us questions. We are happy to ask them live. And even if you post after we've gone live, we always come back to the comments and we will answer your questions. So this episode is all about Space-Comm, which we went to earlier this month. And we're also going to touch on some just news stories that Bunmi has. We always like to keep our finger on the pulse. It's like, this era of space, it's unprecedented. We've never been in a time such as this. So there's always great things happening, new things happening. And we like to keep our finger on the pulse. And we also like to update you guys. So whether you're from the space industry or you're not, whether you know much about aerospace or you don't, it's just an amazing industry that affects all of us more than we actually think. The way space affects everyday life, most of us don't even realize, and we're going to talk about some of that today as well. So just join us on the journey as we get into this. So Space-Comm. What is Space-Comm? It's the UK's leading event on space, and it took place on March the 11th and 12th this month. And we had a wonderful time attending. And so we're just going to share some takeaways. So the Space-Comm Expo, first of all, like I said, is the UK's leading event for the space industry. It's a multi-award-winning event that brings together businesses, governments, defense, space agencies, and aerospace experts to network, develop, and do business. And so if you kind of just want to give yourself, like immerse yourself in the space industry for a day, or you just want, a quick shot as to what the space industry is all about, it's a great event, and I encourage you to go. It happens once a year, typically around March. It was in Excel this year in London, and it will be in Excel next year. Whether you're in the industry or not, I really think it's a great event to attend, because you get to hear from UK Space Agency, various other space agencies. You get to see companies in space, government agencies, all under one roof, and the networking opportunities are great. So anyway, we went and had a wonderful time.
I was going to say to that point, I remember our first Space-Comm.
Last year.
Yeah,
2024, I think.
No, it was a year before.
2023, probably, because it was at Farnborough, actually.
Yes, it was at Farnborough. Yeah. And I remember walking in just like, we're doing this.
We are actually doing this.
You have that moment when you get to Space-Comm, you're like, we're doing this.
Yeah.
And all of the topics that are being covered, like you said, the companies and what have you, it really brings the whole industry to life.
It really
remember
does.
It being a kind of
it really does
watershed moment for me when I went there.
It was, and for me too. And the thing is, this year for me, it was like last year, there were so many terms and things that we kind of didn't understand the lingo. Yeah. And what was great about this year is that you really realize, when you've been in this industry for a minute, you realize, actually, I'm starting to understand the terminology. I know what you guys are talking about. And part of our job here is really to distill that lingo, because in space, it's a lot of it's one of the UK's most technical industries, and so when you first go into it, it can be hard to understand what's actually happening. But one of our jobs here is to distill that kind of more technical language into like layman's terms, because that's what we needed, because space is becoming more commercial. It's less about, what's just happening out there on space or in the research labs. And like I said, we're going to talk to you about how space impacts everyday life in ways that you probably have not realized. So before we get into actually the takeaways from Space-Comm, I want to give you a few facts about the whole space industry. And, we're going to continue to beat this drum, because more of us, regardless of what industry you're in, need to know about the impact of space and how impactful it is and how it affects all of our lives. So the first thing is, space is still a young industry. On the 4th of October 1957, the Soviet Union launched the world's first satellite, Sputnik. And nearly 70 years later, like, we're only getting into the commercialization of space. Like, it's only now that, well, you had the first space race, but I feel like now it's almost the second space race. It's fascinating, amazing things happening. But it's important to remember that this is such a young industry compared to so many industries, and which means there's lots of opportunity, lots of learning still to happen. There's lots of unknowns. And even those that have been in space for decades now will tell you there's so much that is still unknown. And so much of this is still about learning together. So it's still quite a young industry. For decades, the UK has been at the cutting edge of pioneering space technologies, from manufacturing small satellites that have revolutionized satellite constellations, to developing scientific instruments for groundbreaking international missions, such as the James Webb Space Telescope. And I encourage you to look up these projects, because honestly, they're fascinating. They are fascinating. So those are the first two facts I wanted to share with you. I also wanted to tell you that the UK space economy is a fast-growing sector. No, I've told you that already. It's valued at 18.9 billion and supports 45,000 jobs. And that's 2021 to 2022 figures. So that's even much higher now. The space and satellites industry has been a quiet overachiever, growing at an impressive average rate of 4.5% essentially over the past 12 years. That's 3.5 to 4.7 times faster than the broader UK economy. So it's growing faster than most other industries in this country. So it's worth taking note of. This growth trajectory positions the sector to reach 25.8 billion by the end of this parliament and 32 billion by the end of the next, potentially adding 28,000 to 50,000 new jobs. That's significant. In these times of financial hardship, being part of these industries are actually growing and demystifying it, actually, because one of the sessions at Space-Comm was all about the workforce, and actually they need more people from other industries. And there's this sense that if you are going into space, then you need to be an engineer or other technical professions. And yes, absolutely, you do need that. The average entry requirement is, I believe, a master's degree level for certain jobs. But then there's other jobs and other ways of transferring skills that are useful to the sector. And so, for example, Bunmi and I have, more commercial related degrees in education. Bunmi is in law. And what else, Bunmi?
Did law and also strategic partnerships for tech and what have you. And that was actually, law was intellectual property, but also it carried on to some more commercial conversations. So it's not tech per se.
And we've both been in tech, and I've been in business my entire career, but yet we are building a business in the aerospace sector, which does also include space. And so there's lots of ways that you can transfer skills. And there was even a panel that spoke about this and said that actually, the industry is great from like a research perspective, but it lacks commercial capability, things like business modeling skills, which is why we're actually in a sector, because we realize that they do not have the commercial capability to match the technical capability. And that's what we at the Launch Strategist bring. Okay. And so today our way of life on Earth depends on space. It literally depends on space. Satellites help us to predict the weather, keep people and businesses connected and products moving, and monitor our planet's health. They underpin the UK's financial system and critical national infrastructure. So just to lay a scene for why we're even talking about space, why we're in space, it's literally critical to UK industry. It's critical to our way of life. It's not just something out there. It literally affects our everyday life. So let's jump into some takeaways from Space-Comm. So this was huge. Again, just adding and validating some of the things we've spoken about already about space. But Dr. Paul Bate, who is CEO of the UK Space Agency, said that 16% of the UK GDP, that's £364 billion, depends on space-based services. Literally 16%. Can you imagine? 16% of the UK GDP depends on space-based services. And I want to give you some examples of these space-based services that affect everyday life. So energy networks, so they use navigation satellites to organize power grids. Trains and aircraft depend on space, use navigational satellites for signaling. We all use sat navs on our phones or in our vehicles literally every day. Communication satellites power scheduled TV programming as well as live reporting and broadcasting. When you're watching that live football or that live event, that you can't do that without space. You literally can't. Ambulances, firefighters, and the police rely on navigation systems for emergency responses. Military organizations in defense need accurate, real-time guidance for weapon systems and aircraft, as well as detailed ground intelligence for their field agents. So just to give you an idea of how impactful it is. And so that figure to me is staggering, like 16% of GDP. It's absolutely massive. So point two, the second takeaway I wanted to give you is that space is, and this is something else that Dr. Paul Bate says, CEO of UK Space Agency, is space is a team sport, okay? The opportunity is so massive that it's almost too big. Well, no, I'm not even going to say almost. It's massively too big for any one country or any one company or organization to be able to manage on their own. So it's literally dependent on international collaboration, on domestic collaboration. We literally have to collaborate to actually make inroads and to escalate and grow our space industry. But in saying that, one thing that also came across is that it's very important that the UK develops its sovereign space capability. And one of those areas is in the launching of satellites, and also in the area of mini satellites. As well, we have strong capability in that area, but it's as much as we need to collaborate with other countries, the UK does need to build its own sovereign capability in space, because again, it's almost like the second race war. You know, you see countries like China and India, and even in the last, I guess, year to 6 months, landing on the moon. Like, there is this race for space capability, and also countries asserting their dominance in the space industry. So as much as collaboration is important, we want to collaborate. That sovereign capability in the UK is very important. And to that point is my next takeaway. There's so many up and coming space startups, so many that Innovate UK are investing in, governments are investing in, because it's such a great industry, such a growing industry. And to develop that kind of sovereign capability, and companies in the UK, as space becomes more commercial, that can meet those growing industry needs. And a couple of companies I just wanted to highlight. Now, the first is Oxford Dynamics. Now, Mike Lawton is the co-founder of this company, and he's also the founder of the company that I'm the other company that I'm CEO of, Oxlabs, an incredible man in every sense of the word. Brilliant entrepreneur, brilliant engineer. And so his other company, Oxford Dynamics, and so they're developing a new range of cutting edge AI-based tools that solve some of the world's toughest data processing challenges. They achieve this by enabling computers to process data in a more human-like way than ever before. And one of their current activities focus on AI-enabled situational awareness. So what space situational analysis is it's essentially the tracking of objects in orbit and determining where they're going to end up. So it's technical stuff. And so his company works on that stuff, among other things, but an amazing company. So Oxford Dynamics was one. And I know Mike Lawton personally, and just, incredible. Connected, again, this is a company that I spoke to at Space-Comm and really impressed with the work that they're doing. So what they do is they offer hassle-free connectivity from space. So unlimited messaging for everyone, for everything, everywhere. Because you have a lot of remote places that do not have a Wi-Fi, are never going to have access to Wi-Fi. And so how do you communicate from those remote places in the world, like the deepest jungle and places like that? And so they're offering that connectivity and have some amazing products. And I spent a good amount of time speaking to one of their employees and just very excited about the work they're doing. But this was one of many. And one of the sessions at Space-Comm was a pitch session. And I couldn't even get in the room. I mean, it was probably one of the most demanded sessions of the day. Like, I literally went up about 2 or 3 times to kind of get in to hear some of these pitches, and I literally could not get in. And that's testament to the appetite for businesses to start up in this arena. And I'm sure next year, Space-Comm, if you're listening, please have a bigger room next year, because it was obviously a great session. Literally, there was a queue outside the door, but some of us couldn't get in. Yeah. So hopefully next year. But it's testament to the growth of the industry.
The connected company and what they're doing is quite interesting, actually, because many moons ago, when I was sort of in that field of sort of connecting the unconnected and using different technologies, satellite connectivity was always one that was I suppose put out there that there was lots going on in that space. But it's interesting because cost was always the issue.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And it's interesting that connected are now starting from the affordable space, because when we were trying to do commercial deals, every time that we tried to bring in a satellite provider to actually provide backhaul for the connectivity space, it threw out the maths. And it threw out the whole concept of actually we're going to rural places. The actual figures are quite different. So it's going to be interesting to see what Connected are doing to now get that proposition to become a more affordable
100%. And that is actually, now that you say that, Bunmi, that is one of their USPs. The fact that its space is more affordable and accessible than ever before. And so this is why there's more competition in the space. It's not like the barriers to entry are really coming down, Bunmi, as you know. And so it's a really great point that you make. And, you know, companies like SpaceX has facilitated that. Even companies like Virgin Galactic, like Richard Branson was streamed in via Starlink.
That's right.
He was streamed in via Starlink. And he was talking about space tourism and what Virgin Galactic are doing. But I mean, just incredible. And when you see companies, they're almost the forerunners. So when you see commercial companies like that foraying into space, even Jeff Bezos, all of the top entrepreneurs in the world are venturing into space. And so they are almost the forerunners. They give you a taste of where things are going. And so that, you know, space is really opening up. Yes. And then the next thing was space stations, the growth of space stations. Absolutely. So
that might be the only thing that actually gets me into space. I mean, I'll have to think about it. Someone gave me a seat on one of those things.
Yeah.
If we go into a space station.
Yeah.
Please.
So it's a space station. So at the moment, there's 2 space stations that exist. So one is ISS, the International Space Station, and the other is China's Tiangong Space Station. And so essentially what happens on the space station is astronauts and cosmonauts, and I believe cosmonauts are what
want to say what Russia calls astronauts.
Yes, and they conduct scientific research there. They maintain the station and perform spacewalks, all while living and working in a unique microgravity environment. But what was fascinating is on one of these panels, there was a prediction that within the next 10 to 20 years, we should have, some predicted 4, someone predicted 12 space stations. Can you imagine?
Really?
Yeah, 12 maybe.
Calm
pushing
down.
it a little bit. Calm right down. Calm
What are we
right
going to
down.
do there?
12 might be pushing it.
All right, there's a lot to do there.
But maybe 4.
Taking over the skies.
Yeah, maybe 4. Yeah. There's
4, I see. 4, I feel.
Yep, someone said 6.
Because I think these space stations have been there a while. So can you imagine like the space station, International Space Station of the future?
Yeah.
And talk, we're sort of talking about the iteration of the space industry and just like improvements and what have you, the money going into it and how you could make a really, really even cooler space station.
100%.
So I feel like I'm up for the future.
I'm up for the future space stations. I'm totally up for it.
Why is it going to take so long now?
10 to 20 years. Everything in space takes forever. Literally everything in space takes forever. One thing that was really good to know though, and this was on a panel that was about Africa and space. So again, Africa and space, definitely one to watch. Definitely Africa and their space ambitions is definitely one to watch. I did not know that South Africa is one of the world's leading component manufacturers for aerospace. Yeah, I didn't know that.
I knew they were active, hugely active.
Yeah.
But I didn't know it was in the component space.
I didn't know that.
And more active than people realized.
Yeah. And what they want to do, they want to offer like full turnkey solutions, so end-to-end capability. So even though they're leaders in leading component manufacturers, they do launch and other things as well. So keep your eye on Africa as well. And like I said, they're just really on the workplace and skills panel that I was on. There's a real lack of commercial capability and business modeling skills that is needed where we come in. So it was wonderful to hear that. And what else? Well, the final point is that we are living in the era that space has never seen before. So we are incredibly excited. Great things ahead. So definitely stay tuned to us. Stay tuned to other places, organizations, UK Space Agency, European Space Agency. Just keep your finger on the pulse because it's a wonderful industry that affects us all. So Bunmi, over to you. Let's talk about some space stories.
All sorts, bits and pieces here and there.
Yes.
But actually, segueing into some of the things, I'll go out of order because we started talking about space stations, and as you know, we had our little astronauts that were stuck up there.
Yeah.
Because their their spacecraft malfunctioned. We won't go into that. Have a look at our previous episodes for what happened there. But actually, we've now heard that NASA and Boeing, who own the Starliner, are going to be collaborating to certify the Starliner for future crews going up there in later this year or earlier 2026. And after they experienced those propulsion issues, they're going to be doing some more tests, loads of analysis and what have you. And I like that as a story of what we're saying, because just the way that the industry is iterating and just improving, we don't expect everybody to get it right out of the gates. And the fact that also you mentioned collaborations, does someone else know something better than I do? And if so, let's work together.
100%.
And also let's not give up, because someone's going to go back on that. Someone's going to go back on the spaceship.
100%.
And just hope it all works
Yes,
again.
yes.
Which I just think is just like courage and just fantastic.
100%. And what I love about that is it's testament to like space companies wanting to reuse stuff.
Yes.
Because in times past, like you launched once and that was it. But I can't remember all the technicalities of this, but one of what Elon Musk is doing, he's creating systems that can be reused again. And so just that kind of reusability piece is industry is good as well.
Yeah, and just checking out what's gone wrong, right? Which is a big notion in the in aerospace. So there's that, and then also jumping on your great figures in terms of size. It was acknowledged in Space-Comm too, and I just thought this would be a great example to sort of give an example and a real-time idea of the type of investments that are going on. So we've got GE, a massive name in the industry, are now embarking on a European expansion.
Oh, wow.
And they've announced investment of 28 million euro in European manufacturing sites.
Wow.
And that's the manufacturing sites are to roll out again in this year, 2025. Okay. And this is an interesting one because it's what we've heard from some of the clients that we've talked about. And that money is going to be put into expanding capacity, updating equipment, fostering more innovation, and enhancing the quality and delivery to customers.
Okay.
And that's sort of fascinating because that's the type of thing that we've talked to our clients about. Like, how are you using innovation? How are you using tech to speed up your
100%
delivery services? 100%. Looking at these kind of equipment type things. We've been to some really great cutting edge places where they've got the most amazing equipment, but really understanding how that's been pivotal in the growth of aerospace. So it's interesting to see GE putting that kind of money in Europe at the moment.
It is. And one of many of the big companies, investing in the UK-based space sector.
Yeah. And then the other piece that, while we're still talking about numbers, again, signposting the actual real strength of the industry as well. We've got some interesting growth numbers here within the aircraft and passenger usage. So we've seen now that there's going to be projections that the global passenger traffic will surpass 10 billion by 2025.
Wow.
And that's a 6% increase from 2024 and a 16% rise compared to 2019.
Wow.
So that is again underscoring what you're saying about how much the industry is growing, but then what is required from that. That growth alone means that we now need more aircraft being developed, and we need huge efficiencies in the supply chain and the MRO space too.
100%. 100%, because that exceeds pre-pandemic levels, doesn't it?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
And that's just, again, just people moving around, and we know that there was an aircraft and shortage anyway. So there was no way that any company out there is not going to be or needing to think about its efficiencies. And bringing in everything, even what you're saying about the AI-enabled work that's happening is all going to be important. So those kind of numbers are cool. I have got a big T word in a minute, but before we do that, for those who are putting their diaries together for this year, we talked about Space-Comm, how that was such a great experience. For those of you who are in MRO, maintenance, repair, I say operations, but I saw a different O. I'll come back to what it was, maintenance, operations, and I'll tell you what the O was, but we're going to say operations. There is a European conference going on in Excel.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, in
well,
Excel.
we'll be there.
Yeah, it's a while away. It's in October the 14th to
Okay,
the 16th in Excel. It's going to be a usual sort of premiere event. It's going to be bringing together the professionals in. Let's see.
Yeah. Oh, overhaul. Okay.
Yet another one of those moments.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Overhaul.
Okay.
Operations overhaul.
Mm-hmm.
Double O. Double O. So it's going to be bringing these people together, talking about the trends, the innovation. We're going to have, I did write it down, the type of people. Yes, airlines, OEMs will be there, suppliers, all of the industry experts.
And just to the OEM, for those of you that don't know what OEMs are, the original equipment manufacturers.
They're going to be there too.
Yeah.
In terms of numbers, they're predicting about 500 to 590 exhibitors.
Okay, big then.
Yeah, huge.
Massive.
Looks like it's going to be a big one. And a footfall of about 11,500. That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
But it is an actual pivotal part of the industry. Super important. Put it in your diaries. The website's out now. I suggest you book and get your tickets.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Wonderful. So lots happening.
Yes. I did want to say the T word, and I think actually because we've been talking for a while, maybe we go into depth with this on another one.
I am actually intrigued because I don't even know what the T word is. So now that you said it to me, like, what is the T word?
I could just leave you all in suspense and make you come back to the next one, or I could just tell you, as if you haven't heard this already, tariffs.
Oh, yes. Okay, let's talk about it.
I can give some headings.
Let's talk about it.
Let's not be scared. It's fine.
Let's talk about it.
It's not fine. No, but it's not fine. It's fine. So tariffs that you would have heard a lot in the news since the inauguration of and the incoming President Trump and his crew, and tariffs.
I love that, President Trump and his crew. Yes.
Being imposed on various countries. And I was just thinking, of course, this is going to have some impact on our lovely aerospace.
Of course.
So for those who aren't deep into it, and you probably are actually if you are a manufacturer, if you're doing all of this stuff, but in on our level, the aerospace industry is going to be hugely impacted by tariffs. Some have been coming most recently March the 12th, and the first heading would be the tariffs on steel and aluminium. When it comes to aerospace, obviously significant materials, fundamental to the aircraft manufacturing space, and the obvious knock-on effect is going to be the increase in production costs for the aerospace companies. So that's a huge thing. 25% imposed there.
Wow.
Then we move on to the tariffs that were imposed on Canada and Mexico. And I think, like many other industries, that is a supply chain impact going on there because of the specific energy products that are used again within the industry too, and they are crucial. This whole supply chain is crucial again for the manufacturing space, and so that's going to be a massive situation. And then obviously the tariffs on China that went from 10% to 20% will, as all other industries, affect the components that are being used and put into our the aerospace products. Now it's industry. It's not aerospace only specific, but I think the message for the aerospace industry is speed and resilience. And being agile.
Yes.
And we've got a really interesting example of this in Rolls-Royce. But I think Rolls-Royce has an advantage because of all of its global manufacturing facilities. So what we're seeing is that Rolls-Royce are now contemplating increasing their manufacturing presence over in the US. So to be honest, mission accomplished, if that is what if that is what they were trying to achieve, which is getting more stuff done in the US. So they are going to be increasing that in order to mitigate the tariffs from all of their international product spaces. They're actually going to be focusing, if you're interested in South Carolina, Indianapolis, Indiana, and Aiken.
Okay, interesting.
And this is their ability to reduce the impact of what's happening overall from the global movement and these protectionist measures. But not everybody's going to have that.
Not everyone's going to be able to. And again, this is another reason why the UK needs to build out sovereign capability, because so that when the US and other administrations decide they're going to do stuff like this, as much as we're collaborating, there is the capability to kind of do some stuff on our own as well. So, and we know Rolls-Royce is one of the biggest kind of aerospace suppliers, and actually it's one of our golden children in the aerospace sector. So I can't imagine them ever not doing anything in the UK, but you know, it's
I'm interested to see the speed, because what I was looking at was saying, they're contemplating it, they're considering it, and what have you. What's really been interesting is the speed of which these tariffs have been put in. And I don't know whether the mitigating actions have matched the speed of which they're put in. I think even reading it shows that there is some running, but we've got to be fast moving.
We have to.
Now we have to. I think have the pleasure of this kind of like contemplative
and taking forever to do stuff and taking ever to make long decisions, and that's one thing to the US's credit, like, whether you like Trump or not, whatever your politics is, he's come in and he's done things and he's done what he said he's going to do, and they're not messing about in terms of time, speed. Even if you look at their efforts to space, the amount of money they're putting in, we think that we're putting in a lot in the UK, they're putting a lot more. And so that speed in a very kind of slow-paced industry historically is very necessary.
Sure.
Yeah, it's very
and
necessary.
I think it's an industry where you really need to try and be ahead of the game.
Yeah, you have
because
to.
you can't afford for the wrong thing to happen. Good.
Yeah.
Finally, very finally, talking about the wrong thing happening. We did post about this, apparently.
Yeah, we did on our launch strategist page
yes,
on
as
LinkedIn.
You know, Heathrow had a bit of a close down. Yes, due to the fire in the North Hyde electrical substation in Hayes. Over 1,300 flights were cancelled, were affected. About 200,000 passengers were affected as well, and they were closed for about 18 hours. Now, that's huge for that type of airport, but they tried it. The
turnaround was good, actually.
It happened
Fair
on the
play
20th.
to them.
Yeah. And I think by the 21st,
they were back to normal.
Again. Okay, so this is great. What it does, shout out loud and proud, which is what everybody's talking about, is really this resilience play for our aircraft. For our airports. And I'm sure that people sort of sitting in their companies now listening to this thinking, what kind of resilience have we got for anything? So at the moment for Heathrow, from that perspective, there's they're going to be reviewing the regulations for airports following this incident, and they're going to try and now ensure that there's critical infrastructure can better withstand and recover from these kind of events. And I think it's great. I mean, you don't want something bad to happen before you think about it. Luckily, it wasn't Heathrow itself on fire.
Exactly.
But it was about an energy outage. Where was your energy failover?
They didn't have enough power to sustain, because you've got to think it's air traffic control, it's the 5 terminals, it's so much, and but the knock-on effect was massive. Planes in the sky had to be diverted, massive. I think over 200,000 flights were affected. And that was just in 18 hours.
Exactly.
So I guess
building in resilience in everything that happens along this industry is just like, I think the massive takeaway from that.
100%.
And I know we try to do it. I know this industry tries to do it, but I just think as it grows, there has to be
like agility and that resilience piece is massive.
Huge.
It's absolutely massive.
That's it for me.
Yes. Well, that is it from us, and I learned some stuff for me. So thank you for that news update. So yeah, we are the launch strategist, Katrina and Bunmi. Just loving the work that we're doing, excited about this year. If any of that has resonated, do you have any comments, any feedback, definitely do drop a comment in the comments. I hope you've enjoyed this. Thank you for joining live, or whether you're catching the replay, we very much appreciate it. Our next live is actually the 16th of April with Stephen Wilde, who is going to be speaking of how he has literally built and turned around an aerospace company. A fascinating, amazing story of someone that has actually built and grown an aerospace company from the ground up, how he did that, what his lessons are, where the aerospace sector is now, and all of that good stuff. So it's going to be our first guest on Aerospace Chronicles, our very first guest. So do join us on the 16th of April at 1 p.m, I believe that is. We'll be posting an update on the page. If you have not liked the page or connected with the page, then please do follow the page. We post at least 3 times a week, blog posts, video snippets, news stories. So that is the best way to really connect with us. So do that. And also, speaking of Dr. Paul Bates, who I quoted from a number of times, who is the CEO of the UK Space Agency, one of our latest blog posts is literally a summary of his talks from Space-Comm. So if you're interested in that, pop over to the website, thelaunchstrategist.com, and there's tons of other content on the blog. So just pop on over and peruse. So yeah, thank you for joining. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, and we'll be back with you on the 16th. Any last thoughts for me?
No, just thank you. It's great. Onwards and upwards. The way up.
All the way up. All the way up. All right. Have a great weekend. Okay. Bye.